Yes, Corporal? How can I help?
About you being an assassin. You said that you might be willing to tell me more about that at another time. How about now?
I'm still not certain. The question really is, do you want to know? It might change something.
Such as?
Your perception of me. It is your choice.
Well, I wouldn't have asked otherwise. Tell me.
All right. Where should I begin? Do you remember what I told you about that man who bought me from the Greyfell Bazaar? My owner? I also told you that after an incident, he discovered my talents and made me an assassin.
I remember. But what does that have to do with your morality?
It's complicated. Just listen and you might understand. The incident took place at a festivity. A lot of highly influential people were there, servants of the crown, wealthy merchants, nobles. My master knew all of Greyfell's elites. As always, at these festivities, it was my and the other slaves' responsibility to ensure the guests' well-being. It must have been close to midnight when a man took me into his chambers. I'd learned to play along years ago, because resisting only made it worse. This time, however, was different. For some reason, that man wanted me to tell him that I loved him. I did, but he kept on telling me that I should say it like I really mean it. When I couldn't, he got angrier and started choking me. I had almost lost consciousness when I felt something break. I don't know how else to put it. It was as if my mind simply cracked open, like a crystal ball smashed against a mirror. And all of a sudden, that man and I weren't separate entities anymore.
I don't follow.
My magic, my dreamweavery, that's when it broke free. You probably don't know this, but the only way to become a dreamweaver is by shattering your mind. You are opening yourself to the thoughts and emotions of others, but you lose your own.
Wait, Dreamweavers don't feel and think?
No, we do. But it's differently than normal people. Me. The Iana you're talking with is the result of long work and studying of human behavior. I know how to blend in, to seem like I'm just like you. But the world inside my head is an entirely different one. Again, it is almost impossible to put into words if you're not a dreamweaver yourself.
What happened to the man?
I killed him. It wasn't a conscious choice, looking back. I even think that shattering my mind was my body's way of ensuring survival. I closed my eyes, reached out for the man's mind, and just crushed it. The man gasped, lost balance, and fell right off the bed. He wasn't dead yet, but unable to move. Like a puppet rid of its strings. At first I was disoriented. But then I felt it, for the first time. The urge.
To kill him?
Yes. To massacre him. Hear his screams. To see his life taken by my hand. I grabbed a lantern that was standing on a bedside table and knelt over him, and... well, you can picture the rest. To get back to your original question, that urge, it stuck with me. I think that the moment when my mind shattered and I became a dreamweaver was what unlocked it. Ever since then, I've found violence and bloodshed to be ecstatic, erotic even. And when I kill someone, like I killed that man, I feel alive. Actually, it's one of the few times I am capable of feeling anything at all.
Huh. And this is why you became an assassin?
Yes. My master introduced me into the craft. Probably because he knew that my dreamweavery had changed me. I wasn't just a slave child anymore. I was a weapon now. More than that, even. I needed what these new tasks my master sent me on provided me with. It had become a basic need of mine. Of course, I briefly considered changing my profession after my master had his accident. But I didn't. Killing is something I need, as much as a child needs the love of his mother. If I don't feed my urge, I will die. Not physically, but mentally. I just know this.
But is there no way to cure you? To return your mind to its original state?
No, there isn't. The Finnon Mir have experimented a lot with reversing a Dreamweaver's mind to what it was before he became one. And all their test subjects died.
What about your victims? Don't you ever feel guilt?
Once again, Tahar, I do not feel emotions the way you do. Of course I wonder if I made a mistake, but my reflections are purely based on theory. But then again, I don't accept just any contract. The way Leonider described you, you are a monster in human disguise. And that's the first principle I try to live by. Criminals first. The second one is never kill a mother or a child, regardless of the pay.
Well, but what if you're wrong? If you kill an innocent?
That has happened before, and it will happen again. You see, I do not consider myself some kind of vigilante, some kind of judge. Ultimately, I know that I am what society would call a murderer, and that I do what I do for myself, above all else.
That's a lot to take in.
I know. Now tell me, Tahar, do you regret asking me this question? Knowing all this, do you think I'm a monster?
I don't think you're a monster, no. But I can't understand how you can choose to give in.
As I said, it's a matter of survival. But I understand why you would feel this way. Anyway, I would like some time for myself now. I hope you understand.
So, I guess we have some talking to do, don't we?
You knew about my mother, didn't you? That's what you hinted at back at the forge, before we set out to the Eye.
Well, the answer is yes and no. I had suspicions, let us call it that, but they weren't enough to go on, and I had no idea your mother was connected to the Bloodburn.
Why didn't you tell me?
That I believe you might be the result of your father's experiments? That you're the offspring of some long-dead, forgotten race? Tell me, Tahar, what for? I mean, at best, you wouldn't have believed me. And at worst, it would have cost you your sanity. So no, I don't think I should have told you. I didn't know if these suspicions had any substance at all, and I would have been at great risk, especially back then when you were still part of the rebellion.
Where did these suspicions come from? Did my father tell you?
No. And he never found out that I knew. Your father... I don't need to tell you how meticulous he was, do I? That's why he always kept notes of his experiments and studies. I found one, a notebook. The story's actually quite simple. Your father had gone out to meet with Aeolot Iskander, and had tasked me with cleaning up his laboratory.
Really? He never let me into his laboratory.
I know. And he wasn't exactly trustworthy towards me, neither. But you know Asamo. His mood was never what you'd call stable. One day, he'd think the entire rebellion had schemed against him. The next day, he told us that we'd change the world. It was part of his charisma, I guess. Sometimes I think the reason why the Mage Rebellion became so big was less of Asamo's magical powers, rather than his ability to create emotions in his followers. But we digress. So I had found this small booklet on his table. It didn't look important in any way, yet I was immediately curious. I opened it and started reading.
What was in there?
His experiments in the Eye. The ancient woman, as he called her. Your creation, these waxwork figures which he tried to infuse with life. It was disturbing. And at the same time, fascinating, as you can imagine.
book, did it say anything about how this ritual worked? Andrew said something about how the Shapers conceive differently.
I don't think it can be compared to how two humans reproduce, if that's what you're thinking. But as for the details, I don't know. As I said, I barely had 1 hour, and I only got to the chapter about you in the very end.
Do you still have that book?
No, of course not. I couldn't even read through all of it, else your father would have noticed that I had done nothing of what he had tasked me with, and I have no idea where it is now.
I figured. So, why did he, create me? My mother said it was to gain access to the Archfire.
Yes, I think that was the main reason. Though I couldn't help but notice a certain, warmth in his words when he described his plans.
Was there?
I know it sounds cynical, Tahar, but yes, there was. Still, I don't think you were just a tool to him. You weren't. Tell me, Tahar, knowing all that, how does it make you feel?
Well, it tells me that my choice to betray him was the right one. I was never sure if Isamo was really the madman people thought he was, but now I am.
Yes, I guess you do. Either way, I think we both need some time to think. As I said, Tahar, I'm sorry that I didn't tell you earlier, but I simply didn't know what to do.
Tahar, it is good to see that you have recovered. This place and these people lacked guidance without you.
They did?
Yes, the Lord Marshal tried to assume control, but as you might have expected, he did not have everybody's support. I was even fearing an internal power struggle, and I'm glad it did not come to that. I must say, Tahar, your mother, she is remarkable. I have always wondered what the Shapers look like, and now I do. It is fascinating, though I suppose this is a difficult topic for you. Forgive me if my words were inappropriate.
All that matters is that we save her. We need to stop Lacane and get my mother's spirit back into her body.
Yes, this is our objective. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about? Yes, what is it?
So, Undergast, when you told me about your split with Lena, I got the feeling that you were more than just colleagues.
You are asking if we were in love. Am I correct?
Well, yeah, I guess.
Then let me start by telling you that the term love is undefined and that theories about it conflict one another. I have read a lot of books on it, and I've studied the poems, and I've come to the conclusion that it is ultimately a primitive, carnal urge that people have come to romanticize for the emotions that come with it. I, myself, never felt it, and maybe that was because I saw the underlying mechanisms. I always found it strange how people overreact so strongly to such a simple emotion, and maybe that very fact stopped me from being able to feel these emotions at all.
Well, what are the underlying mechanisms?
The desire to reproduce with a fitting mate. In fact, the orcs have a very dry, rational view on this process, but for some reason humans, dwarves, and elves do not.
Love is more than just that.
Well, most people would agree with you, and I'm certain that in your subjective experience it is.
So, what you're saying is that you were never able to feel love, but then Lena came along and you did.
No, it was not that simple. What stood out in our relationship was that we connected. I've never felt that before. You see, Tahar, to me, the bonds people have always felt peculiar, and I am not like Yana. Her mind simply does not have the ability to feel these bonds anymore. She had them once, but then she lost them, as she became a dreamweaver. My brain is capable of feeling these things, but I am unable to connect with the outside world. I only have my own mind as a frame of reference. For example, when a person tells you yes, whereas he or she means no, you might be able to feel this discrepancy because you are able to empathize with her. I can't. To me, this person's distress would make no sense whatsoever. But then there was Lena. For some bizarre reason, she understood me and I understood her. Or at least, I thought that I did. It was as if this barrier, this shell that separates my mind from others, was pervious to her emotions. I know how strange it sounds, and I also have no explanation for why this was, yet it changed me. All at once, I felt connected. Do you know this feeling, Tahar? You have traveled with these people for quite some time now. Is there anyone you are, fond of?
Well, yes, there is.
I see. Then you probably know how distracting such a feeling can be. To be honest, when I first became aware of that bond between Lena and me, I was horrified. I could not focus anymore, and when I sat down to write my studies, I realized after hours that none of what I had written made sense at all.
Your inability to relate to others, is it innate?
Yes. If it were not, I might have considered my sudden connection to Lena as a symbol of overcoming. But it was not. Even though I felt connected to Lena, I was still unable to feel the same way towards others. This is what deeply confused me.
What did Lena make of all that?
Nothing. Unlike me, she did not try to analyze, to understand its origin. At the same time, she did not discourage me from pondering. I believe this is what made our relationship unique. Complete acceptance. She did not try to tell me how I should behave or feel, and neither did I. Even when she decided to leave the guild and I decided to stay behind, we both accepted each other's decisions.
I see. Am I right to assume that your relationship ended with your disagreement over the Creators Guild abandoning its neutrality?
No, you misunderstand. We never had a relationship. Although the feelings were mutual and we, acted on them, we never felt the need to bind ourselves to some close-minded societal construct. But yes, you are correct. It was the disagreement that broke our bond. Quietly, she left and never returned again.
Do you feel, I don't know, betrayed?
Betrayed? No. By betrayal, people usually mean when someone behaves contrary to what they agreed on, or more often than not, as they would like that person to behave. I always found the word to be very misleading. Desires, wishes, and urges are natural things, and I always found the usage of such heavily judgmental words to be very childish. Lena did what she thought was right, and so did I. I have not and will never blame her for that.
Tahar, ready to discuss the next steps?
There's just one thing I still can't wrap my head around. How did Lacane become so powerful? How could he rally so many people behind him?
The big question, isn't it? In the end, I think it boils down to the fact that he poured salt into the wounds the Mage Wars had left in Northander. You see, it's not hard to rally people behind you if they are desperate enough. He just gave them a simple answer to a complex question. And the people believed him. Though I don't consider him a pragmatist, he really believes in what he says, that Aeonia will return once mankind has repented, which worries me even more. There's nothing more dangerous than fanaticism fueled by magical power. Your father is the best example.
I want to talk about Sentenza, his death.
Well, what is there to say? As I heard the story, he didn't leave you much choice.
So you're not angry?
For you defending your life? No. I never understood why he was so obsessed with hunting you down to begin with.
But he was acting on your orders.
Well, yes, strictly spoken, he was. You were a traitor. Or at least, that's what we thought back then. That witch hunt in Iskander, the battle at the Eye, that was his choice.
Why? Why did he want me dead so badly?
Well, I can only guess. But to me, it seemed as if he felt as if you had, I don't know, betrayed him. He always spoke highly of you. Did you know that? At times, it almost felt as if he considered you his own kin.
I thought so.
You see, Tahar, in the end, both he and I are men born from war. Seeing people die at your command, hearing the widows and the orphans cry as a result of your choices, it changes you. You need to find a way to deal with it, and Sentenza did so by shutting off his emotions entirely. Or, at least, to the outside. But in the end, he always did what he thought was best for Northander. He saw the Harbinger's true face, even before he revealed it. And I brushed it off as his usual distrust towards anyone, which was, as you know, a fatal mistake. And who knows, maybe if I had listened, it would never have come to this.
Without the Harbinger, I'd be dead.
That's true. But this discussion isn't leading us anywhere, Tahar.
You didn't tell me yet. How exactly did you get here? Weren't you in Greyfell when the Harbinger took over?
No, I wasn't. Otherwise, I wouldn't be standing here. But we were on our way back the night it happened. As you can imagine, it was a hard choice to make. But eventually, I left my pride behind and realized attacking Greykeep with the little division I was traveling with would have been suicide.
So you fled?
We retreated. The rest is simple. We went to Iskander because we had heard the rumors about your army. There we met one of your scouts, and then the elven woman, Iria of Finon Mir.
Oh, she decided to let you in?
Correct. You know the rest. Your people were a bit distrustful at first, and I don't blame them. After all, they'd been fighting the Royal Army not too long ago. But eventually, they realized that we were on the same side.
I hope that we are.
We are. Trust me.
All right, let's discuss what comes next. I'll go get the others.
Good.
Good. Now that you're all here, I'd like to plan how we proceed. As...
Tahar, I think you should allow yourself some more rest. You were in a coma for more than a month, and we still don't know what that melding actually did to you.
Isn't it obvious? It made him more powerful.
Yeah, but where does that power come from? What effect does it have on the human body or the psyche? We don't know.
I'm all right, Iskrim. Just trust me.
Fine. Then go on.
Thank you. So, our objective is clear. We need to defeat the Purity of Light and save my mother. Angar, am I right to assume that Lacane made Greykeep his new base of operations?
Correct. It's the center of his power, which is both good and bad. It's bad because Greyfell was built to withstand any kind of ambush.
And why is it good?
Because it also means if we succeed and reconquer Greyfell, we'll cut off the snake's head. Once we kill Lacane, the Purity will fall. However, there's no point in fooling ourselves. That battle for Greyfell will be bloody, and if we want to have even the slightest chance of winning, we need to join the remaining houses.
Ultran, Hallet, and Wulfgar.
Yes. If we put this army together with theirs, we might stand a chance. Also, you should see if you can strengthen the alliances you already have, Tahar. I have a plan regarding that, so we can talk further once this meeting has been concluded.
So do I.
All right. So where do we start?
It's up to you. But before we can even think about arranging a conclave between the houses, we need to break that spell the Harbinger put on my sister Myra. Isgrim, any ideas?
Actually, it should be simple. We need to find the one controlling her, take the rune, and, well, destroy it in the forge.
And who is controlling her? What if it's the Harbinger himself?
I doubt it. The manipulator has to be physically close to his subject, so it'll most likely be someone in Lady Myra's army. But your rune will react to another rune's presence, so once that person is near, you'll feel it.
Good. Then I have a plan. The Harbinger has taken up position in Iskander, between the Utran and the Everlight border. You know that place, Tahar. It's where your father started his rebellion, and where Sentenza almost captured you.
The Loyalist camp. So what's your plan?
We strike in full force and take the castle. He'll be forced to initiate a counterattack, and my sister's armies, the Utran army, will be the closest ones at hand.
A bait.
Yes, we hold the castle against the main army, whereas you, Tahar, and a small troop get behind enemy lines. You find the rune carrier and strike from the shadows. Obviously, you'll have to act quick. We can't hold against the entire Utran army forever.
What if killing the rune carrier won't break the mind control?
We'll just have to hope that doesn't happen.
All right. So we take over the castle, wait for the Utran armies to cross the border, sneak behind our lines, and eliminate the rune carrier. And once Lady Myra is freed, we will try to gain the support of House Hallett and House Wulfgar.
Yes, though we'll need to take care of something else before that. But let's discuss this when the time comes.
Agreed. One more thing. This will be dangerous, and our original mission has been completed. In other words, if any of you are thinking of leaving, now is the time. Well, then we best get prepared now. I'll tell you when we head out.
Understood. Tahar, I'd also like to talk with you if you have a moment.
Corporal Tahar. A word, if you will?
Who are you?
Private Miller, Corporal. I'm from the Royal Army and came here with the Lord Marshal. We've captured someone who we suspect belongs to the Purity. He was seen in the deserted village outside this city, and he looks suspicious. He claims to be a simple courier sent to deliver a message to you, but we didn't want to take any risks. He's outside, near the entrance to the caves.
I see. Thank you, soldier. Dismissed.
Oh, great. Another one. How often do you want me to tell you? I'm not a spy, and I'm not with Purity.
Wait! You're their leader, aren't you? Corporal Tahar!
Yes?
Well, then maybe you can tell these fools to let me go. Blazes, I knew it was stupid to take that job.
So, who are you? And what were you doing in Farland's Hope?
As I told this bloody brute who captured me, I'm just a courier, and someone paid me to deliver a message to a Corporal Tahar. I had no idea it was the Corporal Tahar, and had I known, I would have told that guy who gave me the job to sod off.
Who was it?
Well, he was wearing a hood, so he obviously didn't want to be recognized, but he had a brown beard, was about your height, and had, I don't know how to put it, a certain sadness in his eyes.
But he didn't look dangerous and paid good coin, so I took it.
Can I see this message?
Finally, someone who asks. Yes, it's in my coat pocket, and no, there's no poison in there to kill you.
Let me see. A meeting in Everlight. From a friend.
A friend, you see? Can I go now?
Yes. Go.
Thank you, Corporal. Thank you. Now, don't get me wrong, but I want to get out of here as soon as possible. Do you think your guards will let me through?
They will. Stay safe.
I'll try.
Ah, Tahar. Good of you to come by.
Sure. You wanted to talk?
Yes. I'll be brief. While you were asleep, an elven messenger came by. Varden Merilith, one of the Moorhere scryers from Leafshade, sent him.
Merilith? What did he want?
Only that he needed your help. They, that is, he and a couple of his followers, seem to be somewhere deep in the Leafshade jungle, near the Halayish ruins.
The old Hibernian city. But what do they want there? That's dangerous.
I don't know, Tahar. We will need to find out.
Do we really have time for this?
That is something you will need to decide. But if we don't help, it might cause unrest within the Moorhere, who are fighting for us.
All right. We might look into this.
We should. Is there anything else you wish to discuss, Tahar?
You said you know where we can find more allies.
Yes I do. I'll make it short. The Ash Reavers have invaded the foot of Barga Gor. If we defeat them and their leader, like we defeated Krell, their soldiers will join us.
The Ash Reavers? I'm guessing that's another orc tribe.
Yes, you already met them, back at Farland's Hope. They are a very violent tribe, a lot like what Krell wanted the Fire Wielders to become. And they are nomads. They never stay in one place for more than a couple of moons, which is why their city is basically a movable fortress.
So, we head back to Barga Gor and defeat them. Sounds simple enough.
Well, yeah, except for one thing. Kagan, the Ash Reavers chieftain. I think this invasion is about more than gaining new territory. It's personal. He despises me, and that's putting it lightly.
Why? Because you killed Krell?
No, it's more complicated than that. Do you remember the story about my trial? About Rain?
Yeah, I do. You took the Shapeshifter's trial together, and she sacrificed herself so that you could live.
Yeah, she did. To get to the point, Kagan is Rain's true brother. To this day, he thinks that I killed her.
Did you ever try to tell him the true story?
We only met once. And yes, I did try to talk to him. It ended in a fight which I won. That disgrace only added to his hatred. And truth be told, that was my last attempt to convince him. I knew it was fruitless. Our tribes lived weeks of journey from each other. And, well, the memory of Rain's sacrifice is painful enough for me as it is. I just wanted it buried, somewhere in the dark corners of my mind where I'd never have to face it again. Which, as you can guess, didn't work. I still have nightmares.
I see. And that's why he invaded Bargagor.
It must be. Bloodthirsty as the Ash Reavers are, there is no reason for them to start a war with the Fire Wielders, especially now that we unify them. He must have heard that I'm behind this, and that rekindled his hatred for me. In other words, we need to stop him, and as fast as possible. According to one of my sources, the Purity is also planning to start an attack on Bargagor. The Fire Wielders should be able to hold them at bay, but not if they have to wage war against the Ash Reavers at the same time.
Why is the Purity attacking Bargagor?
Isn't it obvious? To eradicate us. Just like the Dark Elves, we Orcs are a creation of the renegade gods, so we aren't even given the chance to repent. Lakane's war doesn't stop in Northander, Tahar. He plans to take on the entire world.
But that's crazy. He must know he can't win this.
Does he? He's a fanatic. He thinks Aeonir is acting through him. I promise you this, Tahar. Even the moment your blade is at his throat, he'll think he can still win. He has completely lost his grip on reality.
Huh. So what's the plan? Return to Bargagor, drive back the Ash Reavers, and kill Kagan?
If all else fails, yes. We will kill him. For the sake of my people, and for our cause. But he's Rain's last living kin. So I want to first try reasoning with him instead. There must be a way to convince him that I'm not a liar, that I didn't kill his sister.
All right. I'll tell you when we head out.
Yes, Chieftain Czar already left before you woke up to get an idea of the situation. I know time is sparse, but we should leave as soon as possible. And thank you, Tahar. I appreciate it.
Tell me, Angar. Do you regret helping the Purity, now that you've seen their true face?
That's a hard question to answer, and you know it. On the one hand, yes, I underestimated them. On the other hand, back then, it was the only logical thing to do.
Logical?
Yes. After all your father did in the Mage War, the people were angry, desperate, broken. The Purity channeled and still channels these emotions. It may sound cynical to say that now, but if it hadn't been for the Purity of Light, something far worse might have happened.
Worse than a mage genocide? You let the Purity murder hundreds of mages.
Most of them were war criminals anyway. They would have been sentenced to death no matter what. But that is not to say that my decision to give the Purity of Light that much power came easy. I'm not free of self-doubt and empathy, Tahar, even though it may seem that way to you.
However, I will not lie. Mages are a problem, and something needs to be done about them. If we don't, it is only a matter of time until a second Isamo Tahar will appear and once again plunge the world into chaos.
We need a group that represents mages. Then treaties could be made.
That is an interesting idea. But before we can decide on any course of action, we need to deal with the current threat first. But to return to your question, all I did was take every factor into consideration and decide accordingly. You did the same, more than once. I've heard of the trail of destruction you've left behind on your journey. Many people died under your command.
We tried to help wherever we could.
I believe you, but have no doubt that there are many who don't. What I'm trying to say is, there might have been a better way to handle things, but I did not see it. I did what I could, and even though it turned out to be a mistake, I have no regrets.
I wanted to talk about Leonon.
I had a feeling you would. Look, back at Greykeep, the situation seemed crystal clear. You killed 3 of your brethren, and General Noria openly spoke out against you. Similar to my policy regarding the Purity of Light, I can now see that I was wrong. But again, All I did was to take all factors into consideration and decide accordingly. It was all I could do.
You also could have used common sense. I risked my life to help Nortander back when I turned to my father. Why would I now suddenly start massacring Wolfguard soldiers?
You're right. I should have taken that into consideration. Either way, you've been pardoned. And more than that, now we're fighting side by side against the real scourge of the Empire. I don't hold any grudges against you. And I can only hope you feel the same.
The past is the past.
It is indeed.
Did you ever think about what would happen if the Queen never wakes up from her coma?
She will wake up. The healers claim that she's already getting better.
They've claimed that ever since the dragon incapacitated her.
The Queen has Hibernian blood in her veins. And as long as her heart is still beating, I will not waste any time thinking about something that might never happen. Though, of course, that is not to say that others at the court haven't done it. Most people believe that Queen Aelith doesn't have an heir. But that's wrong. She does.
Really? Who?
A cousin. I suppose you know about the Queen's problematic ancestry. The ability to give life has always been impaired in her bloodline, which is why she does not have any brothers or sisters. However, it was rumored that her uncle, Anno Aelith, left an heir before he died. A bastard son.
It's the first time I've ever heard that.
Yes, because the Crown took measures to quiet these rumors. Suffice it to say that Queen Aelith's supposed cousin is far from an ideal candidate for the throne. But I will not go into detail on this topic. It is irrelevant. And it will stay irrelevant. Because the Queen will survive. I can feel it.
You said that you have an idea on how we can get more allies to fight the Purity.
Yes, I do. It's someone you're already familiar with. At least, according to your friend Iria. The Iron Falcons.
You want to convince them to join our troops?
Not all of them, obviously. The Field Dog are an even greater threat than the Purity, even if most people nowadays have almost forgotten about them. What I suggest is that we strike a bargain with them. They give us a small division of their elite keepers, and we provide them with twice the amount of footmen and maybe engineers to make up for it.
Engineers and infantry for a handful of knights. Is that really worth it?
It is. The Falcons aren't only excellent fighters. Their presence will also inspire our soldiers. They're living legends.
That's not what it seemed like when I was there. High Keeper Aranor almost lost the tomb just because she was too stubborn to cooperate with the Deathmen.
Well, given that the latter now fight for the Harbinger, her mistrust wasn't that unjustified, don't you think? But still, you make a fair point. Keeper Aranor is complicated. But if what the elf told me is true, she learned her lesson.
All right, it's worth a try. When do we set out?
Whenever you want. Thanks to these Godstones, it won't take us long to get there, so I'm not expecting this mission to cost us more than a day, 2 at most. We should probably take some troops with us, just in case the canyon is still unsafe.
Fair enough. I'll let you know when we go.
Good.